The scorching sun beat down on the rolling plains of Boeotia, casting long shadows over an army that stretched for miles. Imagine standing there in the summer of 479 BC and seeing a Persian host of more than 100,000 men arrayed before you, their banners fluttering in the wind, the clatter of armor and the neighing of horses filling the air. They were a force forged from the farthest corners of the Persian Empire. Medes, Babylonians, Egyptians and Scythians, each with unique armor, weapons and fighting styles. Behind them loomed Xerxes the Hun himself, the great king, confident that his empire's might would finally crush the independent Greek city-states once and for all. But across the field, the Greeks, perhaps no more than 40,000 in total, stood ready. They were outnumbered, yes, but united by a cause that transcended city rivalries, the defense of their homeland and way of life. This was the stage for the Battle of Plataea, a clash that would not only determine the fate of Greece, but in many ways shape the future of Western civilization. To understand why this battle mattered so profoundly, we must first grasp the magnitude of the Persian threat. Xerxes had inherited an empire that was, in every measurable sense, unstoppable. The resources at his disposal were staggering: massive armies, fleets numbering in the hundreds of ships, and the wealth to supply them across continents. His father, Darius, had already sought to punish the Greeks at Marathon, but had failed. Now Xerxes sought to correct that humiliation, determined to subdue the entire Greek world. He had already achieved some victories. Thermopylae had been a narrow loss for Persia, a heroic stand that delayed his advance. Athens had been sacked. The Persian navy dominated much of the Aegean Sea until a cunning Greek victory at Salamis altered the balance. But the ultimate test would come on land, where the Greeks could use their terrain, discipline and infantry formations to full advantage. The Greek coalition itself was a remarkable feat of diplomacy and mutual trust. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Tegea, and several smaller city-states had come together, setting aside centuries of rivalry to face a common enemy. Each contingent brought its own strengths. The Spartans, masters of heavy infantry, and the phalanx formed the backbone of the army. The Athenians added their strategic thinking and experience in coordinating large forces. Other states contributed both troops and intimate knowledge of the local terrain. Coordinating such a diverse coalition was a logistical challenge in itself. Differences in command style, training, and expectations meant that unity had to be maintained through diplomacy, discipline, and shared purpose. Pausanias, the Spartan regent commanding the allied forces, understood that the terrain would be as much a weapon as any sword or spear. The plains around Plataea were deceptively complex. Rivers, hills, and marshes created natural choke points and obstacles. Open plains would favor Persian cavalry with its superior mobility and speed, but the Greeks could negate this advantage by anchoring their flanks on difficult terrain and forcing the Persians into narrow approaches. The selection of the battlefield reflected both a strategic mind and an understanding of the limits of his forces. The Greeks were disciplined, but numbers and resources were finite. Every advantage mattered. As the two armies drew closer, tension filled the air. Skirmishes broke out as scouts and light infantry tested positions. Persian archers peppered Greek lines with arrows, but the tight-knit phalanx absorbed the volleys with minimal casualties. The Greek soldiers, in turn, tested the Persian flanks, probing for weaknesses in coordination and morale. These early moves were psychological as much as tactical. Each side measured the other's resolve, each tried to provoke mistakes that could be exploited when the full battle began. When the clash became inevitable, it did so in a combination of surprise, planning, and rapid decision-making. The Persians, relying heavily on their cavalry and archers, attempted to maneuver the Greeks into open spaces where their numbers would be decisive. But the Greeks had anticipated this, using natural obstacles to disrupt cavalry charges. Spartan hoplites advanced in perfect formation, bronze shields locked, spears projecting outward, creating a wall almost impossible to penetrate. The phalanx moved as one, each soldier a cog in a larger machine. To the Persian eyes, it was a fortress on the move. The Persian infantry, diverse and skilled, attempted to engage the Greeks directly, but they were hampered by lack of cohesion. Medes and Babylonians fought differently from Egyptians and Scythians. Their styles clashed, making coordinated assaults difficult. Furthermore, the Greek phalanx exploited the terrain and disciplined formations to neutralize Persian numerical superiority. As the two sides collided, the field became a chaotic mix of bronze, iron, mud, and blood, yet the Greek formation held. Within the phalanx, individual bravery mattered, but discipline mattered more. Soldiers fought for the man on their left as much as themselves. They advanced together, rotated spears, and reinforced weakened sections of the line without hesitation. Leaders like Pausanias orchestrated small flanking attacks, isolating pockets of Persian troops and forcing retreats. Archers and light infantry supported these maneuvers, harassing the Persian flanks and cutting off escape routes. The Persian forces, meanwhile, struggled to coordinate these scattered attacks, and morale began to falter. Cavalry, often decisive in ancient warfare, played a nuanced role at Plataea. Persian cavalry attempted repeated charges to break the Greek lines, relying on shock and mobility. Yet the terrain hampered them, and the disciplined Greek formations met them with prepared spear walls. In areas where open ground allowed cavalry to operate, Greek forces used reserves and flanking attacks to encircle and neutralize them. The Persians' heavy reliance on cavalry, combined with a lack of unified command across ethnic divisions, prevented them from exploiting their mobility. Hours into the battle, momentum shifted unmistakably toward the Greeks. Phalanxes advanced steadily, forcing the Persian center back. Commanders observed opportunities and acted decisively. Gaps in the Persian line were exploited, isolated units surrounded, and morale cracked under the relentless pressure of tightly disciplined soldiers. The psychological component was crucial. The Persians, confident in their numbers, were unprepared for the cohesion and resilience of the Greek hoplites. By late afternoon, what had begun as a tentative engagement had transformed into a rout. Persian forces began to retreat, chaos spreading from the center outward. The aftermath of Plataea was decisive. Tens of thousands of Persian soldiers were killed or captured. The remnants fled in disarray. Greek casualties, though significant, were far fewer, and the Allied forces retained cohesion. The victory was not simply a battlefield success, it ensured the survival of Greek culture, politics, and philosophy. Athens could continue its experiments with democracy. Sparta could maintain its military traditions. Other city-states preserved their autonomy. The collective Greek identity, forged in the fires of Persian aggression, would go on to shape the foundations of Western civilization. Plataea's significance extended beyond immediate survival. Military thinkers studied the battle for lessons in terrain usage, infantry cohesion, and coalition warfare. The phalanx demonstrated that disciplined, well-trained infantry could withstand both cavalry and archers when properly coordinated. Leadership mattered as much as numbers. Pausanias's strategic foresight exemplified the importance of tactical decision-making in determining outcomes. Future generals, from Alexander the Great to Roman commanders, would internalize these lessons, adapting them to new contexts. Yet Plataea was also a story of human experience, the fear, courage, and endurance of soldiers on both sides. Imagine the Persian bowmen shooting relentlessly under the blistering sun, or the Greek hoplites maintaining formation despite exhaustion and injury. Commanders shouted orders, messengers ran across the field, and every soldier's choice, fight, hold, or retreat, carried immense consequences. The battle exemplified the intensity of ancient warfare, where personal valor intersected with strategy, and where a single misstep could shift the balance of an empire. The terrain itself played a critical, almost character-like role in the battle. Hills, marshes and rivers shaped the movements of armies, channeled attacks, and provided natural defenses. Greek commanders exploited every feature, anticipating where cavalry charges might fail and where infantry formations could be most effective. The Persians, unfamiliar with local conditions and reliant on coordination across diverse contingents, struggled to adapt. This interplay between geography and tactics highlighted a timeless principle of war. Knowledge of the battlefield often outweighs numbers and equipment. Victory at Plataea resonated far beyond the immediate conflict. The Persian threat to the Greek world was neutralized, preserving the city-state's independence and enabling the flowering of Greek culture. Philosophers, playwrights, and historians would emerge in the decades that followed, their ideas and works forming the backbone of Western thought. Democracy, science, literature, and art, all of these were safeguarded in part by the disciplined hoplites who fought on that dusty plain. The battle stands as a reminder that the preservation of ideas and institutions often depends on the courage and strategy of those who defend them physically. Even centuries later, historians and military scholars examine Plataea for its lessons in coalition warfare. Diverse states with different priorities and military traditions had to cooperate to face an existential threat. Leadership, coordination, and the careful application of strategy proved decisive. The Greeks demonstrated that unity under shared purpose could overcome overwhelming odds, a lesson as relevant today as it was in 479 BC. Walking the plains of Plataea today, one might see only fields and scattered stones, yet the echoes of bronze shields and shouting commanders remain. The battle is immortalized not just in texts, but in the legacy it created. A Western civilization that could think, debate, create, and govern itself, protected from subjugation by a decisive stand on a summer day in ancient Greece. The story of Plataea reminds us that numbers alone do not guarantee victory. Courage, discipline, and leadership shape the fate of nations. The Battle of Plataea was more than a military engagement. It was the moment when the future of an entire culture hung in the balance. Through strategy, unity, and relentless courage, a coalition of Greek city-states defeated a vast empire, securing their world and influencing ours. It was the clash that saved Western civilization, a testament to what disciplined men, guided by shared purpose and intelligent leadership, could achieve even against overwhelming odds. Every phalanx advance, every spear thrust, every coordinated maneuver contributed to a legacy that would resonate through millennia. It is a story of endurance, intellect, and heroism, reminding us that the defense of values and ideas is often fought with both strategy and sheer human will.